The Jeff Crilley Show, just about all company leaders have had to pivot during the pandemic. How do you lead a remote team effectively? Coming up next, an expert is just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, as we all know, in any company you have introverts and extroverts, and sometimes during a pandemic when that extrovert has to work from home, they just start to shrivel up. To talk about that, because just about all companies are dealing with this right now, Lori Darley, she's the CEO and founder of Conscious Leaders, LLC. Thank you for coming on the show.
So great to be here and see you again, Jeff.
Absolutely. It's been several years since you've been on the show, but we had to have you back because so many companies are really having to reinvent themselves. I mean, if you have a great company culture physically and then everybody's working from home, I'm sure some of the clients that you coach are having to deal with some things that they just don't have a playbook for.
No kidding. And I tell you what, first of all, with the companies that I have had the privilege of coaching intact teams, their intact teams, it was astounding to me how quickly they were able to pivot. It was almost like watching a seamless ballet to watch the organization not only start to work from home, but then do all of the technological adjustments that were required. At first, it seemed like that it was hog heaven for many of the introverts who were used to and preferred to be alone in the workplace, and it was okay to just hop on a Zoom call and then, go back to, I guess eating bonbons in their bedrooms or whatever.
Right.
But, for those of us who, I will say as human beings, we are all pack animals, and our greatest need is to feel a part of a group. Whatever that group is, whether it's an organizational team or whatever. So for many, it has been quite an adjustment to be separated from other beating hearts, and to still embody and still have that sense of community in the workplace. So there are lots of different things that we have done and explored together to kind of, I'll say, bring people together, including actually for a training that I did online. I actually brought in an improv comic.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about your best-selling book, Dancing Naked, Claiming Your Power as a Conscious Leader. I have to ask you about the title. So it's very provocative. What does Dancing Naked mean?
Well, let me be clear. I have never danced naked, except in my own bathroom, perhaps.
Okay.
Sorry, erase that visual from your head. But it's much like the work of Brené Brown. It's a metaphor for what I call being your authentic self. And in the words of Shakespeare, there is a song that the world is forever singing through us, if only we had the ears to hear it. And part of my work with individual clients, because it's deeper work, is to support people in really kind of tapping in to their unique expression, their, I'll say, distinct expression that only comes through you. You are uniquely Jeff Crilley. I am uniquely Lori Darley. And when we're born, from the moment we come down the chute, we are imprinted upon by our culture, our family, our, the groups in which we, hang out with. And so some of us, we're living lives that we were given rather than the life that we're actually meant to live. So I help people tap into that.
Yes. We've got some video of you as a speaker and coach. And I want to talk about, when you wrote your book, this is long before the pandemic, but I think there are probably chapters that still apply today, right?
Yes. I would say the common denominator, Jeff, is when people go through I'll say a crucible moment in their life, whether it was something that happened to them, like a heart attack, or a more intentional crucible moment, which I called in the early part of my career the transition, making a transition. The ground upon which we walk shakes a bit. It's like the tectonic plates of our ground shift, and we're not really quite sure who we are as we move through that. And I think that as leaders, people inside of organizations have had to, and have perhaps maybe not so willingly at first, but really connected wholeheartedly with what's really important to them now. Like their lives look very, very different in terms of who they, at the other end of the pandemic, may not choose to be spending time with anymore.
Yes. Let's talk about being vulnerable and transparent as a leader, because I think a lot of people put on a suit of armor and they've got to be this person that they imagined, and really the employee just really wants to see the real person, don't they?
They really do. As a matter of fact, there's a formula for that, and vulnerability and transparency is a part of that formula. If you're you're interested in pursuing a sort of a very subjective approach to, in a more objective way, with a formula around vulnerability and building trust. Vulnerability and transparency is absolutely key to that. Why? Because people want to know, first and foremost, circling back to that sense of belonging, feeling a part of a group. People want to know that you're like them. It's that you have the same kind of vulnerabilities, that you're not just this, armored up superhero version of yourself.
Tell me a story. Tell me one of your favorite stories. You don't have to name the coaching client, but tell me your favorite success story of, this is why I got into this.
There's so many, because what I found mostly is that people are incredibly brave and resilient. Let's see. Most recently, I've actually been working with a pair of leaders in partnership. And if you are in any kind of partnership at all, whether it's with your mate or with a business partner, especially if you're very, very different, it requires a lot of listening and a lot of acceptance, I will say, an ability to hold a boundary, a firm boundary, but at the same time be willing to give and receive feedback in the most caring and, I always say, come from a place of contribution. Listen from an intent that person is contributing to you. And you have to do a little bit of improvisational jazz, if you will, to make those mental adjustments to be in partnership. And so I guess the success part of that is that they're still in partnership and they're going through the roof in terms of success of their organization.
Outstanding. I know a lot of people watching this right now because I'm a CEO, and one of the things that I would want to see is somebody who's going to be a kind coach, because CEOs have egos, you know this. When you approach a client for the first time and you see a problem that you know you can fix, there's probably a bedside manner that you use to convey that information.
Well, yes, and with that comes sort of the number one rule of coaching is, first of all, I don't solve people's problems. I empower them to find solutions that they already have within them. And I will say that the first and most important skill of a coach is to meet someone where they are. I made early mistakes in my career where I had this, grandiose process, and where I fell short was in my ability to be with where they were rather than what they heard as where they should be, even though that was not my intent. So I learned from my mistakes that very well. And it's so far so good.
Okay, final thoughts, because we're almost out of time. The person watching saying, do I need a coach? How do you know when you need a coach?
If you feel like you're perpetually stuck, or if you wake up and it's about one more opportunity to live Groundhog Day, whether it's in your relationships, your relationship to your professional career, or even just navigating a really difficult relationship.
Wow. Very powerful words. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You bet.
We're going to put your website up to end the segment. ConsciousLeaders.us is the website. Lori, Darley, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff, so much. It was great fun.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.